Hello everyone, TLSG here, back again with another daily Marvel Snap video. So today I have a more accessible build with Zabu, and I tested this one for 5 games and it was a 100% win rate with a something like average of 4.5 cubes per game. Absolutely nuts. I had a couple of really high rolls, but the preliminary tests were astounding. And so this list is pretty close to the original Apocalypse Lockjaw Discard Cycle deck that we ran previously. There was always a flex spot in that list that just felt out of place. So we tried Hela, we tried Sarah, we tried Absorbing Man, and they all just felt kind of okay. So we took out the flex spot that was Sarah, we put in Zabu, and then with Zabu, we wanted to lean a little bit more into the 4-cost drops. And so what we did was we removed Swordmaster, so one of the discard components, and we added in a Wong. And so this is a little bit closer to the original days of the Apocalypse discard, where Hellcow used to only cost 2. And so if you can either get Zabu on the board or you flip into it with one of your swarms, you can then enable a really big last turn play in a Wong, Hellcow, and Dracula. Discard 8 cards from your hand, get Dracula onto the board, and just be able to position it in the most strategic way possible. And that's not going to happen very often, where you drop all 3 on the final turn, but a lot of times just doing Zabu on 3 will allow you to do both your Wong and your Hellcow, or your Dracula and your Wong to set up for that later game Hellcow. You can start cycling some of those cards, you can cycle your Hellcow a little bit easier, and turn 4, turn 5 are no longer as clunky because you have that reduction of your higher cost cards to be able to throw a lot onto the board. And so otherwise, it is a very standard Apocalypse discard deck. We're going to go ahead and jump over into a couple of games. I hope you guys enjoy. All right, first up we have a Rebel Spy. And the first card that gets pulled with Sakaar is our Wong, which is beautiful. And the first card that gets pulled for them is a leader, which is not so great for them. And so we are going to snap into it. It's a 100% win rate deck, guys. We're going to go ahead and retire at the top. I will see you guys. Let's jump over into the next one. All right, next up we have Ezyan. And in our starting hand, we have... That's not our 4-cost card. We have 3 4-cost cards. We also have Zabu. We have Morbius. This is a beautiful starting hand. We do know that they are probably running a Zabu and maybe a Spider-Man lane lockdown, which could get kind of scary, but we'll see. We'll see if they get both triggers. If we can limit them to maybe just locking down one location, we can push the rest of our power. Otherwise, it is pretty hard to compete against. Let's go ahead and play our Zabu into the Daily Bugle lane. We're going to go ahead and play it into the Strange Academy lane. That way, if they Enchantress, they're going to have to Enchantress mid. So they do play their Zabu as well. And so now we have the cheaper 2-cost cards. We have Lockjaw and we can start rotating. But I think what we want to do is we want to get our high power plays out onto the board. So I'm going to do the Wong, the Dracula. That's going to allow us to start double triggering our discard cards. So both Lady Sif and Blade. We're just looking to draw into our Apocalypse. And that would give us our biggest high roll. And so that's what we're digging for right now. The Apocalypse is going to give us the biggest power potential, the biggest power push. So they do use 2 4-cost cards in mid, one being Drax, one being Rock Slide, but it's not quite enough. I'm wondering if they're going to push to lock down these 2 lanes now. We do draw into our Apocalypse, which is massive. The double trigger of Lady Sif, the single trigger of Absorbing Man. So the double trigger of Absorbing Man is going to be his copying ability, not necessarily the one that he copies. And so playing him here would only trigger it once. I'm going to go ahead and do Lady Sif into the Citadel. Actually, we're going to go ahead and we're still going to play it into the Citadel. I was going to play it into Daily Bugle, but I don't want Dracula to move over into this lane. I want to guarantee that it goes here because that's going to be the easiest place for us to push the most amount of power. So they do use a Spider-Man lockdown in the far left lane and the Absorbing Man to copy it into the Strange Academy lane. And so as long as we can outpower them in mid, or if we get enough discards, then we can outpower their power potential in the far left lane. The Spider-Man lockdown list, I ran a version of it. It didn't have the Quinjet, but I did run a version of it. If it gets very popular, it's going to be very frustrating. But you can play around it. You just need a way to push power into lanes that are already locked down. And so we do have the potential of 20 power Apocalypse. We also have Lockjaw and Blade. And so Blade could potentially discard our Apocalypse or our Chavez. We are hoping that it gets the high roll and it discards the Chavez, and then it is going to rotate into another card. So we could potentially draw into our Calling Wing to discard an additional card, our Hellcow, to make sure that Apocalypse is going to get discarded by Dracula. That will also allow us to push some additional power into the Morbius lane, especially if we rotate. Even if we don't hit another discard card, Blade counts as one, Dracula counts as another. So that's going to be another 4 power into the Citadel lane. And so it's becoming harder and harder for them to catch up with that power potential. And so they do end up taking the retreat. There's a chance that they could have held it down. All they had to do was place some kind of card here, and they could have held it down. If we got the high roll with the Dracula or the Lockjaw flip, this was going to be a pretty difficult one for them to push power into. But that one feels good. This is kind of like the debris junk deck, where like it's fun to play, but it's really terrible to play against. And so I'm glad that we were able to sneak the win away from this one. Let's jump over into the next one. All right, next up we have Rufio, and in our starting hand we have our Wong, Dracula, Swarm, and Morbius, and Kamar Taj is the middle location. If we can get Zabu out onto the board, that is going to make this a huge potential lane. We can trigger all of our discard cards 4 times. It's just going to create some incredibly crazy power potential swings. And by holding our 4 cost until the very end, we can reposition them if they do something like a Cosmo. They do play a Nova, so it could be just a standard destruction deck. It could be a Galactus deck. We just need to be on the lookout for what kind of deck it is. And we do get the Calling Wing, which will double discard our Swarm. That is going to allow us to start buffing up our Morbius. We also have the free resources of the Swarm. Oh, wow. And then they storm the far left lane. That's okay. I'm wondering if this is going to be another one of these Spider-Man lockdown lists. It feels really good when it plays off, but I played about 40 games with the list that I created, and it did okay, but it wasn't insane. It wasn't incredible. And so if they're going to plan to lock down both of these lanes on the last turn, we can always do the Lockjaw and then 3 rotations. So do we play Dracula into the flooded lane, or do we allow just our, or do we lean on just our Morbius to be able to take care of that? If we get the high roll and we get Apocalypse and we start discarding a lot of cards, then it'd be fine. We're gonna go with it. I think we probably should have played it into Vibranium Mines. That's okay. Ooh, they go with a Rogue and they steal the Morbius. So instead of, I'm not sure what the Nova is doing in here, but this could be a Silver Surfer list, or maybe they teched it out with a Rogue just for the strong ongoing for the Zabus that they're facing. And so we are going to play Wong. It might be Wong to do it. We're going to do it anyways. We're going to do Wong. Next turn we can do a Lockjaw, a Lady Sif here, and then we can do our Swarm. And we will be able to rotate all of those cards. What do they play here? They do the Sarah. So I do think this is going to be, oh man, I'm not even sure. I think it's the Silver Surfer deck. And so they would have the double trigger of the Silver Surfer here. They can play a lot of cards onto the board, but I think we can play more. Let's do the Lady Sif. That's going to trigger 4 times unless they stop it, which will hit 4 cards guaranteed. And then that should give us a really big powered Dracula, and hopefully we flip into enough powerful resources that that we can win one of these other lanes. I don't know. That feels ambitious though. Well, let's cycle our swarms. We're gonna do the Lady Sif last, just in case we have Hellcow still in our deck list. And so in case we draw into the Hellcow, we want it to have 2 targets versus the singular target from Lady Sif or after Lady Sif triggers. I think we win the flooded lane, but I think we pushed too much power. I think we flew too close to the sun here. They play 3 cards. One is the Juggernaut. Ooh, which means that the Lady Sif is only going to trigger once, but that's okay, because that's not a very big play line. Then the Brood comes down. Well, I guess our big power push is there. So it comes down to what... Oh no, the Maximus was awfully awful. Oh no, the Maximus forced us to draw into our Hellcow, so we can't even draw into that anymore. We're just flipping into... I guess if we flip into another Vibranium, right? We get the win by just... I don't know. I don't know. Oh man, had they had the Silver Surfer, they absolutely would have won this one. The Maximus was devastating, but we got the reinforcements from the Vibranium Mines. For each card we played there, we shuffled more cards into our deck. We only had one after the Maximus played off, and so then we cycled into Vibranium. What a strange play. We will take the 4 cubes. We will gladly take the 4 cubes. Let's go ahead and jump over into the next one. All right, next up we have Sad Shia. The first location is a Telan, which is going to rotate our cards back into our deck after turn 3. So unfortunately, we're going to lose a lot of these good resources, but not all of them. We pull into our Dracula, which is phenomenal, because that's going to be one less card we have to worry about flipping back into. That's also going to be the guaranteed discard or pull in at the end of the game. We're going to play our Morbius. We can then do maybe our Zabu on 3, or we could go Lady Sif if we draw into our Apocalypse, but most likely we'll do Zabu. Ooh, so the Atelan location changes into Kamartaj with the Reality Stone, and that was beautiful until we saw this monstrosity. Oh no. Well, okay. We're gonna do Zabu into Kamartaj. That's gonna allow us to do both Hellcow and Calling Wing on turn 5. We're gonna need to draw into our Apocalypse here though. That's gonna be the only way that this works out, is the Apocalypse. Guys, I don't know, guys. I feel like this is where we have to retire for the night. This is phenomenal. This is such a high roll. Unless they get a Cosmo play here, this is going to be triggered. This is a lot of discards. Our Apocalypse will win us Sakar. This should win us this lane because Morbius is going to continue to get buffed up as well. Just absolutely nuts. Like this play line and this push on turn 4 is going to be gross. I've done a lot of turn 6 in-game games and it's not going to have been this much power. This is going to be nasty. We have the Apocalypse that discards a total of 2 times here, and then the Calling Wing will discard it a total of 2 more times. That is going to give us an insane push in the Kamartaj lane because Morbius is a 10 power card, and then our Dracula will absorb into the Apocalypse. You get high rolls sometimes. Let's go ahead and jump over into the next one. All right, next up we have Angel, and we do have 1 additional turn this game because of Limbo. They use a Blade, which discards their Invisible Woman, so that looks like it looks like it's most likely a hella discard deck list, which is good. It gives a pretty big high roll, but I don't think it's as consistent as being able to control exactly what you're discarding and what you want to happen. So we're gonna go ahead and play Morbius into the Limbo lane. Next turn we can do our Zabu. That will allow us to do a pretty big turn 4 if we want to. Honestly, we don't need to rush the power out onto the board because we have the additional turn with the Limbo location. Oh my gosh. The Sinister London lane is massive. So if they are a hella discard deck list, they don't typically want to push their power out onto the board, and we are going to really just elevate our power potential. I'm just going to play Zabu into Kunlun. I want to have as much free space into the Sinister London so that we can do a Wong and a Hellcow and whatever else we need to. I don't think we need to double the Zabu effect. The Gambit comes down, it discards their Hellcow, which it does hurt. But we have the double Dracula that's going to come down. So yes, they get rid of our Morbius, which is unfortunate, but it is okay. I'm going to play just the Dracula for now. We could do Calling Wing and Blade, but I think I'm going to wait 1 turn, and then we're going to wait and see. So they do a Jubilee into Limbo to pull into their last card, which does turn out to be the Infinite, which is massive. Wow. We do get lucky. We get Wong, which is what we were wanting. It's what we were wanting. It was what we were hoping for. I don't think we go with the Lockjaw rotation here. I think we're going to go with Calling Wing. That will trigger twice here and once somewhere else, or maybe twice somewhere else. We're going to go with the Blade. That's going to trigger twice here, once or twice somewhere else. Or do we not? Do we just play the Apocalypse? No, playing the Apocalypse naturally is not what we want to do. No, we're gonna go ahead and lock this in. We're gonna play so many cards. We're gonna lock in the Sinister London lane. We're not gonna be able to play cards there after this turn. We do have 2 additional turns, but we don't necessarily want them. We're going to flood as much power next turn. We're going to get the Chavez, and we can play that into probably the Limbo lane, or maybe Kunlun if that one remains open. And we're just going to have a really big Apocalypse to push out onto the board. Depending on where this blade goes, can he go to the far left when he resummons? Yes, he can. Sometimes, Angel, you see, sometimes Angels lose as well. This is going to be a massive Apocalypse. So yes, they have the high roll here, but we have the high roll in our hearts. We're gonna do the Chavez. We're gonna kind of hope that we draw into a Hell Cow. We could do Hell Cow here, discard this 2 more times, or I guess a Lady Sif would do it as well. Would discard this 2 more times, and then it absorbs into the Dracula and Dracula here, and then the Dracula here, and so it's going to be just a really big Dracula play. So the Swordmaster comes down, it discards the Magneto. With the Hella resummon, they're just not going to be able to push enough power, and we do get the Lady Sif as the last card that we pull. That is going to discard this 2 more times, bringing it up to a 40 power Apocalypse. This is going to discard it 1 more, so 44, and then 48. So 44 extra power here, 48. And that's after the game ends. So that is after a Shang-Chi can take hold. That is just nuts. And this may be a bot, but this is such a high roll of game that I definitely want to showcase it, because they didn't have any space to pull the cards with their Magneto. We could have lost, I guess, if the Magneto had resummoned here and pulled this Dracula over. I would have been gutted had that been the case. But we are going to be able to push enough power into the Sinister London lane, and then even more power into Kunlun. Even though they used Gambit and destroyed our Morbius, that would have been a massive Morbius as well. But we will take the 8 cubes, even if it's a bot, we will take the 8 cubes. We are going to go ahead and end it off of that one. Such a fun deck. I really didn't expect this to be the deck that we did well with, but out of 14 games, we won 10, and we gained a total of 30 cubes, which is nuts. If that holds up, that's going to be a quick climb. That puts us almost to 75. We are going to go ahead and end the video here. I hope that you guys enjoyed it. If you did, make sure to give it a like and a comment down below. And as always, this has been TLSG. Later, guys.